Good morning, all. I'm Dan Walker. For those who don't know me, Senior Warden here at Redeemer. If we could, let's please start off with the prayer. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within your holy church through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, thank you all for showing up, or if you're online, that's great. This will be our last town hall of the church year. In case you're keeping count, we're trying to have 4 to 5 of these a year. And we like doing it. We do try to get 2 in the summer because the summer is really easy because we don't have all the services and you don't have to miss adult formation to do it. So today our topic is buildings and ground. But before we start on that, I'd like to put in a plug for Rally Sunday, which will be in 2 weeks, the 25th of August. There really is not a more important Sunday in the life of the church than Rally Sunday. The church family cannot be vibrant without a whole host of people involved. We currently have a whole host. We want a bigger host. So please, Rally Sunday is designed to give you the opportunity to ask questions about ministries you may have an interest in. You don't have to come knowing you have an interest, just may have an interest. And there'll be tables set up, and you'll be able to ask questions to see if it's for you. But what I can assure you of, no matter what your personality type is, extrovert, introvert, no matter if you're, it doesn't matter if you like to be in front of people, if you like to be behind the scenes, we've got something for you, okay? If you like to work behind the scenes, the Eucharist is one of the most wonderful things about our service. Won't happen smoothly without the altar guild. We've got tellers who count money, so if you like to count, we need people to help count money. Lay readers love trying to bring the word of the Lord to life on Sunday morning. The list goes on and on and on. There is a place for you. So if you look in the mirror and you realize you're not on any team, you're not on any commission, ask yourself, don't you have time? And if you're already on one and you have time, 2 is okay too. So, August 25th. So, buildings and grounds. Before we get started with the Mark and Stephanie show, which I know is what brought you all here today, Tim Layton is going to give us a brief update on Wishing Well Park. Hopefully you have all noticed a lot of stuff going on over there, which is very exciting, and Tim will give us an update.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to need notes this morning to get this all straight. So, I'm here this morning on behalf of Rebecca Hollis, who is the director for Project Swing, and Project Swing is the nonprofit group built through Redeemer and supporting Wishing Well Park. For those of you who don't have the background on Wishing Well Park, it opened in our community in 2006. So we're looking at 15, going on a 20-year-old park design and equipment. And that's what sort of initiated this big renovation project that's been going on for the last 4 years in terms of engaging with neighbors and community members, doing fundraising, doing conceptual design, preparing construction documents, and ultimately deciding that this big project needed to be split into a phase 1 and a phase 2. So what you're seeing now is actually phase 1. And then we went to bid review, and we've engaged contractors. Construction began the week of June 10th with equipment removals and site work and preparation. And presently, most of the new equipment's in place. Hardscaping and surfacing is almost all done. And what you're not seeing underneath all this is drainage work to try and keep that relatively flat and low area a little drier. We're a little bit in a holding pattern right now, so we anticipate in the next week or two, we have a contractor coming to do rubberized surfacing around one of the critical play elements. So that's a safety surfacing. So in the next week or two, we hope to have that rubberized surfacing in place. And then the conclusion of hardscape and equipment work will happen, including the donor entry pavers that have been removed for equipment access, and new donor pavers going in to recognize a lot of the contributions that have happened over the years. And our goal, and someone can correct me on this if they know, our goal is to be at a substantially complete phase and to open the playground on September 13th, which I believe is the first Friday fiesta for the Salisbury Homeowners Association. Now, we might have some additional signage and small things going in after the 13th, but our goal is to have this phase 1 buttoned up and open to the public on the 13th. And that brings us, I'm almost wrapped up here, to phase 2, and an ambitious phase 2 fundraising goal of $200,000, which includes building some kind of a maintenance reserve or maintenance fund for continuing work on this playground. And next Saturday, the 17th, Stroll Salisbury Rosemont, the publication, is putting on a fundraiser, 1:30 next Saturday at Fine Creek Brewery. Tickets are $25, and that's going to be the initiation of building fundraising for phase 2, and we'll see what happens as we embark on that.
Thank you, Tim. It's really exciting to see the work going on over there. Again, this is the highlight of the meeting, is hearing what's happening, what other things are happening in addition to Wishwell Park on buildings and grounds. So I will turn it over to Stephanie and Mark.
I'm probably going to let Mark do most of the talking because I don't sound that great today. So.
Morning, everyone. I'm Mark Baker. This is Stephanie Churchman. As of February this year, we became Buildings and Grounds. We took over from Eric Frazier, who we just want to take a moment to thank for 3 years. I wish Eric was here to do the applause.
She was watching on YouTube.
I have no doubt, yes, at least a few times. It's because of Eric that we have the parking lot out here done the way it is. It's because of Eric we've got the lights and the new cameras, obviously working with a team, but Eric is the one who led the charge. And rekeying, oh yes, and the rekeying. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but in the past we had, no, I don't want it up that high. Thanks. In the past we had, hold on.
We can't hear you back
Oh, you can't hear?
No.
Okay. Let me just talk without.
No.
All right. Look, I spent a lot of time in courtrooms, and all right. I hate hearing it back at me. All right. So one of the things that Eric did that I don't know if y'all are aware of, the rekeying. In the past, we had traditional keys, and unfortunately, over a period of decades, the keys weren't changed. New keys were made anytime an individual needed a key for vestry or involvement in the church, and those individual keys were just kind of left out in the community. Well, obviously security is a concern, and while there's many good people with keys, keys get lost and you don't know where they wind up. One of the things that Eric did is change our keys on the exterior to an electronic system. So individuals are given a key fob, which can be turned on or off, can also be turned on for different times of the day, and obviously when a key fob gets lost, you just turn it off. And at any point in time, you can just go ahead and, with a click of a mouse, rekey the entire church. So this will save us a lot of money going forward and provide greater security, particularly in this day and age, in light not only of the church, but also the fact that we have an elementary school. So having the ability to control access to the church and the elementary school is incredibly important. And that's another thing that Eric did that we owe him that gratitude for. All right, moving forward. Oh, Stephanie?
We've been busy though. It's not just the Eric show. We want to make sure Eric gets snaps for all the work he does. Yes, absolutely.
All right. So active projects. Let me start with the pad. I don't know if you all noticed when the parking lot went in, there was part of the parking lot that is done in concrete. Now the reason that was done in concrete is because it's designed to hold dumpsters. But before we put the dumpsters there, we need a fence around that area for the dumpsters. Now, Tim Layton is going to get accolades for the good work that he's done. Take it back, Tim. We are in the process. Bids have gone out. A contractor's been selected. We will have a fence around that dumpster area within the next few months, hopefully. We're just waiting to get the construction started. It'll be a shadow box fence made of pressure-treated wood, so it should look really nice. And then inside, we're going to have 2 dumpsters, one of 6 cubic yards for trash and one of 4 cubic yards for recycling. And that's exciting because in the past we didn't have a recycling-specific dumpster. And particularly in light of a school on the grounds here, we have a lot of paper. So being able to recycle that is huge. Yeah. It's just great to keep making these forward steps. And it's going to look really nice. And moving on from the advantage of creating the dumpster location, what that's also going to do is the area where the dumpsters are currently, which is on the far side of the far kitchen, we are going to be able to put some storage units in there. And why is that important? Well, the fire marshal this past summer, and Mike knows all about this, arrived and informed us, amongst other things, that the areas we were using for storage in the stairwells, which under prior code were appropriate because those stairwells have water supply and sprinklers, so if there was a fire, the things that were being stored in there would not be a fire hazard. Well, fire code changed. So even though those areas have sprinklers, they no longer qualify as storage areas under current fire code. So unfortunately, we had a lot of things stored there that then in this church, which has no storage space, we needed to find a place to go. And Mike and Dan led the charge to find a place with Reds to store all of those things, but it is a bit temporary. So hopefully, once we get the dumpsters moved, we will then have a location where we can put an exterior storage building next to the church where we can store some of those and other items. All right. Wishing Park, we already talked about. And then, oh yes, the other shed. So, I don't know, has it actually been built? I just realized that. I haven't actually seen it. I was gone for a month, so one of the other things that happened on the grounds of the church this summer is Reds wanted a storage building in the woods. And this was all at Red's expense and direction. And over the summer, a storage unit was built, which was painted to look like the church, I believe. And again, with some good insight from Tim and all the folks on the committee, we were able to kind of give them some direction. And now Reds will have an area to store, I think, primarily outside play equipment for the school. All right. Ooh, and then we're also in the process of getting a church-wide surge protector. Most buildings and churches of our size have a surge protector that protects the entire building. We did not have that. And Tommy was the one who raised this as an issue at a recent meeting. And in light of the de minimis cost compared to the possible expense of a surge damaging organ, all of the equipment we have here, we approved a new surge protector going in, which should protect the entire church.
We actually have been pretty busy. Oh, yeah, so huge thank you to Jim Huffman, who spent 2 days up here. Thank you, Jim. Jim's right over there, trying to be unobtrusive. You'll notice, like, our building no longer looks green from Winterfield Road. Thank you, Jim. We really appreciate it.
All right, some other things we're working on. The sign in front of the church, that's an ongoing project. We recognize we need to get a sign that actually works. Unfortunately, while Stephanie and others have looked into it, we can't figure out using the prior box. Apparently, we're having a hard time figuring out who made it. So we may have to do a little more work on that.
Mike had a couple ideas, a couple other churches who have a similar sign, and so we're looking to talk to them, and maybe something that has a little more contrast and visibility. It will not be electric, I promise you, there will be no weird clip art on the corner. We are not gonna do that.
I was pushing for a Vegas style sign.
No, never, we were just. No, it's not. But currently the fonts are pretty small and the lettering's pretty small. Even if you could put it into the waffle weave, or for lack of a better term, that is supposed to hold the letters, that's just deteriorated over time. It gets direct sun in the afternoon. So we do recognize that we're missing an opportunity to communicate to the area, and we are working on that. And the lighting has been fixed, so yay.
We're also in process with addressing the hole in the front of the church. I don't know how many of you all have seen it. Apparently it's been a long-standing issue. Thank you. We're gonna get bids on that and then hopefully get that fixed, because obviously a hole in the church is a net negative. One of the future items we need to look at is resurfacing and repainting of the parking lot. We were recommended that that get done within a year of the parking lot going in order to best protect and preserve it. And then some other stuff, like tree trimming, exterior is ongoing. Go ahead, Greg.
Can you give us some numbers, like what's the resurfacing and restriping parking lot?
Oh, the cost? I think the estimate that we had, it was not a formal estimate, but it was something in the neighborhood of $5,000.
20,000 to do the ceiling, and about
Oh, okay.
1,500 to do the stripes.
Well, thank you. Shows you, my memory is not as good as Dan's.
Elements, and they really need repainting. Does what you just discussed, is any of that included in that?
So these are things that we've looked at in the past. There is a balancing act that we need to engage in regarding income and distribution of funds, regarding on the most pressing needs of the church. And unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't have it on the calendar to do that work, but we're hopeful. I do want to just thank everyone who's been a volunteer and supported Buildings and Grounds, and then, because obviously we can't get this done without your help. And y'all are the backbone of the church, and thank you.
We were also fortunate enough when we took over this commission in February to inherit a prioritized to-do list. So we do understand which HVAC units are most likely going to be the next ones to go out and to plan on replacing those. So we have a good understanding of what's aging, what's going to age first, and we have a prioritized list. And we are diligently just going to try to just keep knocking away at it. So fortunately, we are not reinventing the wheel every time we have a vestry election, and we have a lot of information to work with. So thank you to, again, Eric, for helping to organize that for us.
All the HVACs currently work, knock on wood. So we'll be replacing the next one, hopefully a long time from now. We're just, fingers crossed, we don't have any more. Because unfortunately, as with all things, that's another capital outlay that can, and they're old. And some of them apparently are original to the church, which, first of all, kudos that they've survived this long, but it's like a sword of Damocles just right there.
So, before we get started with questions, a couple of comments I want to make. As far as the fence, actually, we hope it's in this week. If it's not in this week, the following week, because we really desperately want that. Again, thanks to Tim. For those of you who are frustrated how long it took us to have a recycling program, we've had a recycling program. It was called Mike Webb. So Mike would go around and pick up, recycle, and take it in to be recycled. So we just relied on one wonderful person to be the recycling program. So it will be a burden off of Mike, and Mike does so many other things, that's great. Just a second. And I saw some eyebrows go up when they referenced the hole in the church. The hole in the church is up high, and it's kind of like a soffit that's fallen off, where birds and squirrels and whatever can have a field day. It is annoying and it is bad because things can get in there and develop little communities. So we need to get that shut off so it can't go in there. So now, before we open up to questions and answers, either if we're building a ground or anything else, I don't have all the answers, so just I want to introduce, make sure you're all familiar with your vestry, which is Cindy Taylor, who has adult formation, Laura Broman, who has membership and evangelism, hopefully I get this right, Carolyn Head, who has outreach, and Jeff Pond, who is half of parish life. Who else? Oh, Jared Taylor. Oh, my wife keeps telling me I need to bring notes. She's right. Jared Taylor, who is our liaison with Reds and has done an outstanding job. So, now, if you have questions, raise your hand, and Brother Steve Rabel will take and bring a microphone to you. It is important because we not only want everybody here to hear, but we want people online to hear. So, Laurie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things. One, it's freezing in here. Every time we come to church every week, it's so cold. And no, you don't have to do it now. I mean, I think everybody's learned to bring their coat and everything else. But also, I wanted to say, you mentioned Mike, but that's why I raised my hand. Every time I come in this church, Mike is always carting something or fixing something. And he has no problem doing that, and he does an excellent job. And I think everybody else, a lot of people don't know that, but he's always repairing things. And I think that's really important. We are very lucky, and I just wanted to give him a shout out.
So if I told Molly, if no one asked the question, I'm going to ask the question about the temperature. Because the number one question I've gotten in the last 3 months is, why is it so cold in the church? The number two question is, why is it so warm in the church? Every Sunday, I look out and I see people going like this, and I see people fanning themselves. Whoever wants to raise their hand and say they'll come up with the perfect temperature, I'm willing to hear. The bottom line is, first of all, we didn't notice it in the past because we had an HVAC that was dying on us, so it was never cold in here, even when it was working. But what I would ask you to remember is, we have 150, 200 people in here at a time. Everybody has a different internal thermostat. You may be cold, somebody else may be hot. That's number one. Number two, you've got a half a dozen people who are in essence wearing heavy coats every Sunday. Those are your clergy and your lay readers. So now I'm a big old fat guy who is always hot, and I admit that, so before you go home thinking it, I acknowledge that. But I got a lot of slim women up there lay reading with me who thank me when I go and cut it down when it's set at 75. 75 may feel good to you sitting out there with short sleeve shirts. When you're robed up, 75 is pretty miserable because you're wearing, those vestments are heavy. And we only wear one layer. The priests wear multiple layers. So choir also. So I empathize with that. And if you are cold natured, I would just ask you bring a sweater. And if the sweater's not enough, bring a heavier sweater. Because we really have to take everybody involved. And I would much rather deal with people wearing sweaters than people taking off clothes to get comfortable. So thank you, Lori, for that question, because trust me, you're not the only one who has it. But that's really the only, I can't come up with a better solution. So, other questions? Tricia, I wish y'all could see this. Steve started to come, but then he stopped because I hadn't given the official word, even though it is his wife, and he knows he'd get in trouble if he didn't give it to her. So, yes, Tricia.
I am just curious if our piano player will be back for the 9 o'clock service starting in the fall.
Whoa, hang on one second. Oh, she's telling me, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. So yes, we are anticipating it. I think it's fair for me to say the lady who was playing the piano was very much enjoying the relationship with Redeemer and enjoying playing, and I know all of us enjoy having her here. So, yes, hopefully. I think it was Mike. Did you raise your hand?
I'd just like to make a comment about the temperatures.
Because
They can't hear me? That's rare that people cannot hear me. I wanted to make a comment about the temperatures. And I'm glad you mentioned the choir. It's extremely warm up there. You're next to those candelabras. They're in robes. And if you're ever up there during a service, what you have here seems warm. I mean, it is hot up there. And so it makes Dwight sweat, it makes the choir sweat. It is just one of those things. Now maybe we can think about it. But the biggest issue we have with temperatures in the building are people playing with our programmed thermostats. They get touched, they get moved, the temperatures start varying. Even our cleaning crews like to touch them. Keep your hands off the thermostats, please. We program them. We don't want to put passwords on them, but I can password lock them and then you won't be able to change it at all. We just need a little cooperation.
The other
we can
issue
make
that
things comfortable for everyone all the time.
the other issue with the thermostats is messing with the thermostats quickly leads to a mold problem.
Yeah, and we're dealing with that now. The other thing, let me explain about this trailer park type system that we have. All right? Those doors to Reds have to be open into that transit hall. Doors between Pinder Hall and that area that runs down to the library, they have to be open. If the doors are not open, then you cook certain areas of the building and freeze others. It is not a zone system like many of you have in your homes. We don't have that. And so the whole thing has to be wide open or it doesn't work. All right, and let me give you back the
Thanks, Mike.
Before I go on and on.
I think Jim Hoffman had a question.
Stephanie, I think, when I was doing the power washing around the church, one thing I noticed, there were certain areas I could power wash, certain areas I couldn't because the wood, especially around the windows. Could we get an estimate if someone came in, I noticed like painting around these windows and so forth. Could we just get an estimate and maybe do an off-balance sheet fundraiser just to get the painting done around the church and the wood repair? Then I think it'll be easier to just keep the church clean from there. It's just it's really difficult the way the wood is now.
Jim, thank you very much. First for the power washing and for the question. If you were present online or in person at our annual meeting this year, you'll remember that I announced that even though we desperately need to spend a good bit of money on this building, we needed to rest. We needed a year of rest. And therefore, we did not begin the capital campaign that needs to happen. It would be detrimental from a standpoint of economies to do a small campaign like that. What we need to do is a campaign that takes care of the whole building and that pays off some debt that we've got so that we have money going forward to continue to take care of the building. Redeemer has, like every other church that I've ever been involved in, put off some maintenance because after all, it didn't absolutely have to be done and something else had a higher priority. Well, the problem with that is that you end up robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're going to hear about this a lot in the coming months. We just have to pray that the building doesn't fall down around us in the meantime. And I'm exaggerating, but I'm being purposeful in saying that this is absolutely critical. And right now, the wish list for taking care of the building as well as paying off some of the debt so that we can have an ongoing fund is at $1.2 million. So, a capital campaign is coming. You have another 6 months, 5 months of rest. Enjoy it. Okay? I'm giving you ample notice that the period of rest is going to come to an end, because otherwise we're going to lose our legacy, and that would be a heartbreak for all of us. So the buildings and grounds has done a stellar job at doing the things that we had the money set aside for. There were mostly new projects. Everything else is band-aided to a large extent. We do have some $50,000 waiting for the next air conditioner to break. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We still have units that are in excess of 30 years old. The fact that they're still going now is incredible. So, enjoy your rest. Be thinking about your legacy here at this church. It's coming.
For those of you who may be thinking that, boy, I can't believe we've allowed ourselves to get in this mess, please, Molly was speaking the gospel. We are not alone. Months ago, I sat in on a webinar about church building maintenance. And it was put on by some organization within the Episcopal Church, but it was hosted by a company that helps churches do building maintenance. I take that. They have 1,000 churches around the country they work with. Of that 1,000, they said the number that have deferred maintenance as one of their top items was 1,000. Every church plays triage and figures out what has to be done. What has to be done. So we are not alone. That doesn't excuse it, but we're not alone. There's a lot of folks, so Molly's told you with the solution to it. So, Steve.
Would you please refresh our memory as where we are in the process of formally removing the priest in charge title and moving it to the rector title?
Sure. Well, see, now I can't make the joke. I was going to say, Molly asks me that every week. She doesn't. Yes, Steve, thank you. Wonderful question. When Molly came on as priest in charge, it was a 3-year contract. We knew at the time that we weren't going to, it made no sense to wait for 3 years. So the vestry at some point, probably in the relative near future, will be voting on whether or not to make a formal call to have Molly transition from priest in charge to rector. So it is not, it's been thoughtful. We're at basically 10 months now. So we're coming up on the 1st-year anniversary. I would not anticipate, we won't get close to the 2nd-year anniversary before but thank you very much. It's a really good question, and I know that's on other people's minds.
Could you just give a brief overview, just the briefest of overview, what the funding stream for both the redevelopment of Wishingwell Park, the obligations, who's like the Salisbury HOA, do they have a 50% obligation for that, or the church? Is it all the? I'm just curious.
None of it's from the church. That I can tell you.
That's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, they did all the work you're seeing. They raised, I think it was close to 200, 150,000, whatever. I mean, this project was 150,000, I think, just for the equipment that they're putting in. All that they raised on their own. So the church has not, as far as I know, given a penny toward any of that work. Foundation has given nothing to that. It's on our property. That's, yeah.
It's its own nonprofit. It's its own 501c3. So they have their own fundraising stream, their own fundraisers. I've gone to those fundraisers, their own board. It is. Like the church, it's a ministry of the church in as much as the church provides the land for it. But it's community supported. I believe they have insurance.
Yeah, I don't know if it is both, but they have liability insurance. Next question. This is wonderful. Last time it's like we had one question, I think. So this is wonderful. And I trust every question that's come up so far. I guarantee you there's more people out there had the same question. So if you think you're the only one, you're probably wrong. Yes, sir, Mr. Pond.
Just curious, if I wanted to get a ticket to go to the fundraiser next Saturday for Wishingwell at Fine Creek, is there a website? Is there somewhere we can go to? Yes?
Yes. I can send you a QR code or a link. Just. Okay, absolutely.
I agree, and I was just going to say too, it would be great if these things were put in the announcement bulletins as well, and written in a way that it's not just focused for young families, you know, I mean, I think sometimes try to put things according to subject matter, and, you know, if I could attend a fundraiser for Wishingwell Park, I'd love to do it.
Are you doing music? Okay. Come see your very own Jeff Pond for music. I will say, you know, and Molly, I will probably speak wrong here. So I'm going to set her up to correct me. But I think there's always room for improvement on how we communicate. But what goes in the bulletin, we obviously want to keep that to a certain length so that you don't have to have somebody help you carry your bulletin. So reveals is where we tend to put a lot more information. So I'm just telling you that, hang on.
And definitely getting reveals out and getting a bulletin out is a ton of work, and it's a thing that kind of in the transitional time between both coming into in-person and having new staff and new vestry, maybe wouldn't be at the top of the list, but in reveals, if there could be a QR code that would take you to interested in youth and family services, click this QR code and then send you back, then maybe it wouldn't feel like such a scrolling to find things.
I thought we had a lot. I know we've got tons of links in reveals.
I was just going to comment that sometimes I've had some technical issues with working with reveals. And, I think so much dependence on reveals and being told, well, it's on Realm or it's in reveals. It's a little off-putting. And I also think, too, that we have many members of our Redeemer family who might not be as technically savvy as you. Ergo, I think that the bulletin does provide a very worthwhile service, and I, quite frankly, don't think that the comment about having the bulletin weigh so much that it's going to be hard to take your bulletin home is not a nice thing to say.
If that's the worst I do in insulting you, I've had a good day. I wasn't trying to be insulting anybody. We don't want the bulletin to be 50 pages long. That being said, certainly whoever does the bulletins, I'm sure we'll take that advisement of adding more information in there. Yes, Carolyn.
I don't want to make this longer than it has to be, but I was one of the people who asked not to have the QR codes in reveals because I read reveals on my phone. And unless I get somebody else's phone in my household and hold it over those QR codes, they're worthless. And they take up so much room. So I was an advocate of putting links that you could click on in the reveals and QR codes in the bulletin where you have your phone and you can hover over the white paper bulletin. So that's just where I'm coming from.
And you talk about technologically savvy, I thought links and QR codes were the same thing. So
I want to make one more comment, and that was Buildings and Grounds did a great job of presenting this morning, but I do want to make sure everybody knows, and you probably do, that when there is a big expense for anything, Buildings and Grounds included, the whole vestry votes on it. They bring it to the vestry and the vestry votes on it. So their names are front and center, but the whole vestry, that's how it works.
thank you, Carolyn. Other questions? Thank you. Those were all wonderful, wonderful questions. Can we put it off? Thank you all. There will be, your next town hall will be, I forget the date, but it's sometime in early fall, and we will do this again probably during the adult formation. Thank you for Mark and Stephanie.